I would like to call this March 8th, 2022 meeting of the City Council of Charleston to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gregg. Councilmember Shealy.
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin. Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Brady. Councilmember Gregory. Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings.
Here.
Councilmember Shade.
Present.
Councilmember Bowden. Councilmember Appel. Councilmember Parker. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. Now, if you would like to join us, Councilmember Seekings will lead us in an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and fellow colleagues. Heavenly Father, bless us all and keep us under your wing. May your divinity shine on us all and fill us with your grace. Allow us to feel your presence as we set about in our duties, mindful of your humble guidance. For those in need or feeling the effects of ill health, or who stand in the path of hostility, we pray for your gentle hand of relief. Let us strive together and with your guidance to make this a better world. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I think everybody knows, but just in case, if the very unlikely event were to occur that we need to evacuate the building, you got these two doors here and one door over there. Don't use the elevator in that case, but please use the stairs going down, and the one set of stairs out the front. That's basically the only way out. But just so everybody's has situational awareness, and I already commented, we have new microphones for our council members and myself. We still need to turn them on when we speak, and we may have to adjust how close they are to you, but I hope the sound quality is better. Thank you all for putting them in and getting them installed for us. So first up, I'd like to share a resolution supporting the citizens and the government of Ukraine. And I'm going to ask one of our local U.S. citizens, but native of Ukraine, and a friend of mine, Roman Pekar, and his wife, to please come forward and join me on the stand. I had also invited Alex Pavlichenko, but I don't see him here yet. Y'all please come forward and join me up here. And thank you. So we've all been horrified by the terrible tragedy that the evil Putin has put upon the citizens and the government of Ukraine. I must tell you, though, that I've been uplifted by the spirit of a small but dedicated local citizens who are native of Ukraine, including Mr. and Mrs. Pekar behind me. Roman, by the way, is a musician, plays with the Charleston Symphony, and he's also a jazz player. So I got to know him years ago playing some music. And when this happened week before last, the invasion, the illegal invasion of Ukraine, he contacted me, and they were having a little gathering at Euro Foods, which is also owned by Alex and his wife. They are originally from Ukraine, but U.S. citizens now, and small business owners here in Charleston. And they had a gathering that Friday morning, was that Friday a week ago. And it surprised me how many people were there. And then I saw some people I knew, and they started telling me their stories. I didn't even know that they had ancestry from Ukraine right here in Charleston. And then we gathered here last Tuesday night on the front steps of City Hall rather, and lit up the building. We had a terrific spirited unity rally of support for Ukraine. I was at the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting for 2 days last week, and we had a live video address from both the ambassador to the United States from Ukraine, but also from the mayor of Kiev. So with that background, let me read this resolution from the city and all of us. Whereas on February 24th, 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin launched an unprovoked military assault on its neighboring country of Ukraine, a sovereign democratic nation. And whereas while the ongoing assault has been met with strong resistance from the Ukrainian military and its armed civilians, Russian military attacks on residential areas of Ukraine have forced the evacuation of millions of civilians to neighboring countries and other parts of Ukraine. Whereas the United States has joined nations around the globe in issuing strong condemnations of Putin's aggression and have mobilized to provide both military and humanitarian aid. And whereas with the attention of the world turned to the horrific events unfolding throughout his city and country, Mayor Klitschko, mayor of Ukraine's capital city of Kiev, participated in a virtual discussion among U.S. mayors just this past Thursday. During that discussion, Mayor Klitschko stressed that unity among Ukraine's allies during this harrowing time is critical, called for both political pressure and economic sanctions on Russia, and made a plea for additional defensive weapons to arm those fighting to protect his country. Whereas American mayors, council members, citizens across this nation continue to be inspired by the resolve of Ukrainian citizens and leaders, and President, I don't have his name here, Zelensky, and remain committed to helping the people of Ukraine in any way they can. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the mayor and council members of Charleston and city council assembled on behalf of ourselves and all our citizens, that we stand in solidarity with the Ukrainian people as they continue the noble fight to defend their sovereign nation, its democratic values, and their very lives. John Tecklenburg, Mayor. And I want to present that to Roman and his wife and ask Roman if you'd like to share a few words with us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Roman? I will. Yes.
Yeah, I will share. Good evening. I'll read. I'm sorry. I'm not a public speaker at all. Dear members of City Council, Mr. Mayor. My name is Ron Pekar, and I'm a resident of Charleston, South Carolina since February 2001. Right next to me is my wife, Katya, Ekaterina Pekar. We both represent both sides. I'm native of Ukraine, and Katya is native of Russia. We have relatives in both countries. And this war is right here in our family. As of now, today, there are 3 of our boys have miscellaneous activities after schools: a tennis tournament, a hockey practice, a robotics club, a theater play, volunteering. My eldest son is helping us tonight with the logistics due to us being here at the Charleston City Hall. Otherwise, we'll be practicing. He will be practicing, preparing for his upcoming concert with the College of Charleston Orchestra at the City Hall Theater in a couple of weeks, for his graduation performance exam in College of Charleston in April. And for 13 days that the war started, since the war started, our kids are now well aware of what makes them different: being safe and live their lives. I'll read a few quotes that I'm getting over the telephone from my friends overseas. My son wakes me up at 5 a.m. and said, "Mom, there's a war started." We looked outside and seen our neighbors packing and leaving. A neighbor after neighbor, they were loading their cars and leaving. And I panicked because I had a work to do. At 10 a.m., I had a rehearsal in the opera theater where I'm working. Now I'm no go. Where? Why? My only son cannot fight, but he cannot leave the country either. There's a military law in Ukraine now. I'm not ready to start my life all over again, be a refuge. I don't know if my theater where I worked all my life survived and what will happen after the war is over. The witness is Tanya Kotyuk, an Ossetian by ethnicity, who worked in Kharkiv Opera Theater Orchestra as a musician. Last night, I hosted 18 migrants from the East in their journey to the West, the safety in their journey to the West. Today, there were 14. Who knows how many will be tonight? I'll do my best to help everyone. Witness is Serge Mktichev, a real estate businessman whose ethnicity is half Armenian, is half Ukrainian. My parents are not going. My wife's family is not going. How am I going? By the way, all be well, don't worry. Vitaly Bogach, a dual citizen of Israel and Ukraine. Scary times. My eyes are blinding from nonstop reading the news. From each good news, tears of hope. And from each bad news, tears of hate to the enemy. It is impossible to work. Who needs flowers now? But I decided to open the store because the flowers are the beauty, and the beauty will save us. Natalie Barras, the flower estate owner. All above are the statements of my Vinitsa Leontovich Music Boarding School class of 1991 string players that I was sitting at the bench at that time. My eyes are blinding too, from the exact reason, reading the news and from crying. For 13 days, my days are 20 hours and my sleep time is sometimes a little bit more than 4 hours. Normally it's 3 hours sleep. Because of me being unable to do anything. And then I would like to tell my story. I'm sorry I'm taking time. But the story started with Nazi Germany trying to denazify Jews back in the 30s. That's the exact message that Vladimir Putin has to Ukrainians today. We all know what happens with Jews in the 30s and 40s, Holocaust. My own aunt perished in the ghetto, being 4 years old. Sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Roman and my name is Kati Bekar. We try to be in the center of this because we represent both sides, both countries. And I'm very thankful to message that I get from media. They usually try to separate Russia and Putin, but it's still not always this way. I have friends in Russia, I have relatives in Russia, most of them completely shocked. I have one friend that keeps going to the streets to protest. I check on her every day because I fear for her. Most of them try not to do it because they see no reason that will not change anything. They will be just imprisoned for it. And there are lots of people that are just plainly brainwashed. And I just want to tell that this war is not on other half of the globe. It's here because there are so many people that the last week and a half constantly on the phone trying to organize escape for their relatives both in Russia and Ukraine, because believe me, lots of Russians try to escape now. And our friend, her nephew, managed to escape and his wife didn't. So they are like on both sides of what's going to be probably an iron curtain now. I am an educator. I was teaching music most of my life. I still have a couple piano students, even I work full-time at MUSC now. So I have few points that I would like to make about what we can do really to protect our children and our future. First of all, Russian language doesn't specify the country of origin or political position. Many people came here before Putin or because of Putin, or even from countries that have nothing to do with Putin, but they still speak Russian. That's what unites us with them. I know that people are getting confused and just plain angry. We've heard about some attacks on Russian businesses in New York. We have a little friend here. She's 7th grader in one of elite public schools. She was called a Russian terrorist a few days ago. I think educators and businesses should do the first step to protect Russian-speaking community from attack, because most of us have nothing to do with it and do not support this war. And couple more minutes, thank you for your time. I have two more, I think, critical elements that I would like to address. I think that we need to think about protection of our own freedom and democracy, because we saw how quickly it deteriorated in Russia. And it started in 2014 with annexation of Crimea. People started unfriending each other on social media and in real life, and families were torn apart and lifelong friendships were torn apart. And society was divided into two separate pieces with two absolutely separate information zones. And now people are waking up and trying to reach to each other and talk sense to each other, but it seems to be too late. That's what I hear from my friends in Russia. That's what I experience myself. I have a cousin in Moscow that quotes government TV. I have a friend here who is trying not to break with her mom and brother who are saying, "You're a Russian woman, how can you support Ukraine?" And I maybe surprisingly see this we all see it here because we also at last year's, right? As a teacher, I see it in the culture of teaching the debate, because we basically teach to win, to prove that we are right, instead of teaching how to understand each other. We do not teach the culture of dialogue, of listening intelligence, which is the culture of peace, not the culture of war. I think we need to think how to do that. And the last thing I would like to address is there was an article yesterday in New York Times called "Fighting Disinformation Can Feel Like a Lost Cause." It isn't. And there are programs at schools in Europe that actually teach children, give them the tools how to spot the propaganda in media. Yesterday, we had our oldest son stop by, and we gave him the biggest Russian propagandist to listen to. And he said, "Wow, that's really good. That's very convincing. He really knows what he's doing." And I think our children are in danger of that too. That happened in Russia, but it can happen anywhere if we do not teach our children how to recognize propaganda. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, before they,
Councilmember Shea.
before they leave, the Cafe Euro Foods is in my district off of Old Town Road. And it's a deli, cafe, and a shop combined into one. And we visited it several times. We actually get some Lebanese ingredients out of that store. They have a sign that says, if you're on a diet, you're in the wrong place. But you and I were present Saturday at the Seawall Street site. And the best of Charleston came out again with the folks who came to organize a relief package effort, and an 18-wheeler truck was loaded in no time. This is our opportunity.
It was well organized.
It was one of the, and I'm not sure how much time they had to do this, but it was well organized. They had folks out there to separate the clothing items. It was even military items that they took, and we saw some bullets and other items loaded on there. But I just want to express our unity and our support for our friends. These are our neighbors. These are our citizens of the city of Charleston and our state. I was watching the 60 Minutes special they had, and I hope I say this properly, but the rallying cry is Salva Ukrainian. Is that correct? Which means glory to Ukraine. So if we can glory to Ukraine. Salva Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. And we're here to stand in solidarity with y'all and your families. And thank you for being here.
Thank you for that moving personal message. It's an unprecedented, well, at least since World War II, events in the world happening. We can't imagine how personally horrific it is for you, but it is for all people that enjoy freedom and democracy in the world, because who's next, you know? And if you don't appreciate American, this country at this point, wake up. It's we are very blessed here, and I feel you know, conflicted that there's all this protocol that Ukraine isn't a member of NATO and there's only so much we can do and should do, and all that discussion is going on in the world. But we are with you 1,000% and the freedom of Ukraine, and we will do all that we can, as we have been doing this week. And that was, as I mentioned, was an uplifting event, West Ashley Saturday and Sunday, of people coming together and helping in any way they can. And for anybody listening, there are, I know you see it on whatever news program you watch, different agencies that you can donate to help, including the UNICEF Fund, including the International Committee of the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders. There are many other organizations that are now doing humanitarian and military relief for Ukraine. So I ask everyone, if you're able to, I know there are many causes out there, but please help our brothers and sisters in Ukraine at this time. Right now, it's a time that it's needed. So thank you again, Roman and Mrs. Picard, for being with us. Next, I'd like to share a proclamation recognizing both Women's History Month and International Women's Day. If I could ask Councilmember Parker to come forward, and the chair of our Commission on Women, Janet Alterman, if y'all would please join me, and I will read the proclamation and then ask if both of you would like to say a few comments regarding this occasion. Thank you. So whereas International Women's Day is celebrated globally on March the 8th, this day by those who believe in gender equality and those who seek to improve the lives of all women. And whereas on the 111th International Women's Day, in support of the 2022 theme, Break the Bias, we encourage everyone to take action against gender bias and inequity. Whereas throughout American history, women of all ages, classes, and ethnic backgrounds have made countless invaluable contributions to the growth and strength of our nation, state and nation, both chronicled and unrecorded in many cases. Whereas comprising a significant part of the labor force working inside and outside of the home, women continue to play critical economic, social, and cultural roles every segment of our life. Whereas women played a critical role in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions, and currently make up the majority of the volunteer labor force throughout the world. And whereas recognizing critical weaknesses in the fabric of the nation, women have acted as a catalyst for change and have served at the forefront of major progressive social movements, advocating for important causes like abolition, emancipation, civil rights, and the women's rights to vote and gain equal opportunity. Whereas the City of Charleston would like to acknowledge the city's Commission on Women and all its members and thank them for the important work they continue to do to improve the lives of women in our community. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, hereby proclaim today, March 8th, is International Women's Day, and March 2022 is Women's History Month as well. So for comments, Councilmember Parker and our Chairman, Alderman of the Commission on Women. Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for acknowledging this important day during Women's History Month. I will be brief. First, I just want to recognize all of the amazing women in our clerk's office. I just have to say thank you. I mean, I just wanted to start there. You literally keep this council running and you make it look so easy. I have no idea how you do this. You all have also shown me a tremendous amount of patience and grace as I took on this new role. Jennifer Cook, Velvet Simmons, Vanessa Ellington, Wanda Stepp, Andrea DeRungs, Marcy Grant, and Philip and Patrick, we acknowledge you as well, but thank you. Thank you all, okay? We really appreciate you. In the 200+ year history of the City of Charleston, aldermen and council members, only 14 women have sat in these chambers as elected officials. To say I feel humbled and honored to be on council would be an understatement. Thank you, Clelia Perino McGowan, Ward 1, and Belazant A. Moorer, Ward 11, for blazing the trail as the first women elected to council in 1924. We didn't see another female council member until 1960 with Mary Utze. Hilda Hutchinson Jefferson, District 4, and Brenda Scott, District 6, were the first African-American women elected in 1975 to hold council seats in these chambers for 13 years. To all of the women of Charleston, the women who work for the City of Charleston, and to the Commission on Women for the City of Charleston, this proclamation is for you and for all of the women that have served before. I have only been with the Commission on Women for a short time, but reading previous reports and listening to what you all have accomplished while you have been together is truly inspiring. Mrs. Janet Alterman, the chair of the commission, will have more to report in a few moments. I will let her share their accomplishments and hopes for the future. Jennifer Brown, Julie Moore, Monique Hill, Lydia Cotton, Amanda Coman, Patrice Witherspoon, Carolyn Wright, Denise Fugo, Tricia Corey, Claire Gibbons, Tina Singleton, and Hilda Gadsden. Our staff, Brittany Pinkney, Mindy Sturm, Jamie Roper, Catrice Smalls, and Dustin Thompson. Thank you all for being on the Commission for Women. The many organizations that you work for, represent, and dedicate your day-to-day lives to is a sentiment to the true nature of the women of our city. It takes a village. Unfortunately, some people don't have a village, and to many, you are that village. I can't wait to see what we can accomplish together, and I know I speak for myself and the citizens of our beautiful city. We are grateful for your community service, and we thank you for dedicating your time to help serve the women of Charleston. Thank you.
I couldn't say it. Thank you. I couldn't say it any better. You will be hearing from me in a few minutes. I will try to keep it modestly short, shall we say. But thank you, Councilmember Parker, for jumping in with both feet into serving on the Commission on Women. And if I may be allowed a point of personal privilege, I'd like to honor the women and children of Ukraine, many of whom have left their country and are desperately seeking solace. To the women and children of Ukraine. Thank you.
Would you like a copy of the? Can we do a picture together maybe? So I was just on a leisurely walk, as I sometimes do, to catch a breath of fresh air. And if you go to St. Michael's Alley, just on the other side of St. Michael's Church, and take a left and go a short distance, you'll find a plaque, which is a terrific story about our very first woman council member, whose portrait hangs above us here in the chambers. Her name was Clelia McGowan, and she was quite the suffragette and activist, and helped create the Charleston County Library System, among many other accomplishments. It's worth one day just walking over there and reading up about Councilmember McGowan. And I'll also share our other portrait here of Septima P. Clark, who our Septima P. Clark Parkway is named after. And she was an amazing civil rights leader, and sometimes known as the mother of the movement, because she actually taught Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King a thing or two about voter registration and engaging with the community from Charleston, South Carolina. So we have many women to be proud of right here in this city. And you didn't quite go down the whole list of the 14 council members, but one was my mom, Esther, who proudly served with Brenda Scott and Hilda Jefferson when she got elected here. So anyway, thank y'all, and we look forward to your report in just a few minutes. So moving along, next up, we have our approval of city council minutes already. Right. Any additions, changes, deletions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. We're already at our citizens' participation period. We've got just a few folks signed up, but we'll allow 2 minutes each and look forward to your comments.
Anthony Bryant.
Please state your name and address when you come forward. Thank you.
According to Luke Rankin, when my public comment I made on the redistricting in the state of South Carolina and the congressional districts, Anthony Bryant, $0 to $12,000 in this state. 44% of the state don't pay state income taxes. Many need a rebate with gas prices going up so high. So therefore, there had to have been a referral to the criminal division in Atlanta in the Fifth Circuit. That's be attached. I'll be suing in Atlanta on a FOIA request of so many Anthony Bryants. So I want to make sure I clear that up. In protest, I sued Bryant versus Administration Office, United States Courts, because 130 federal judges did not fully disclose their trades on the stock exchange, which many in this country are too poor to pay $400 for a fee to even be heard. So we hope that the Senate, with Tim Scott and others, would either ask them to resign for not paying and showing their trades on the stock market while this country is suffering. Okay, so this is the kind of work I do. Okay, I like being unpopular. Like Ken Burns said this: it was a happy day when the first unhappy slave landed on these shores. We were very unhappy, but they thought we were happy. We sang so well and played the bongos or whatever they wanted to hear, but we were definitely in struggle. So this is my last comment I got to make on this. I'm unpopular. I like being unpopular. As long as there's one Black man in this country to be wrongfully accused of a crime he didn't commit, into 2021, 2022, Anthony G. Bryant will remain unpopular. The Black man in this state is definitely not free. And when Black people refer other Black people to the feds, of Mark Hill and others in the Senate, they referred my name to Mark Keel and other agencies because of this hate speech here. This is not hate speech. This is my free speech given to me by the first slave that came across these shores.
Time.
I'll give it to you over there.
Thank you, sir.
Muhammad Idris.
Evening, Mayor, City Council. We are about to start a newspaper called A Clear Vision Journal. And our prime subjects will be City Council, because we believe that we have been coming here over 20 some odd years, and we know how our city operates. And there are 12 people here that we will be telling the people in general how they vote when they got elected, and letting the people know that the city council work for them. The city council work for them. They pay the city council, and anything that they want in their neighborhood, they should be, that is lawful, they should have a representative to get that for them. And if they don't, we should get rid of them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
William Hamilton.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of Best Friends of Low Country Transit. We want to advise the council of what our transit goals are for the year. Our goals are to secure another year of bus service to the beach, which CART has apparently already improved, and to double ridership, to increase CART ridership by 30%, get more middle school age students on public transit, to push the Low Country Rapid Transit Lines terminus back to Somerville where it belongs, and after that to work on getting it back to downtown Charleston, a transit system which starts at the fairgrounds and ends at Reynolds Avenue in North Charleston will not do what this city needs done. And to obtain 10 more lighted bus stops on Carta, 2 on the Sea Islands and 2 in Somerville. And finally, to make sure that nothing is done to build or enlarge 526 until the rapid transit system the voters of Charleston voted to build and have been taxed to build is constructed. We will be back next month with a more substantial and hopefully more interesting demonstration than me. But these are important issues because federal funding to build affordable housing and transit is in DC now, and it will not stay there long. And if our region and our elected representatives in Congress and Senate don't bring that money to Charleston and to the Low Country, it will go somewhere else before the midterm elections. So I ask you to get with your senators and your congressmen who don't seem to be very motivated and explain to them that we need money to finish this transit system and to build affordable housing, or our tourism industry and our medical industry are not going to function very well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Nita Weiss.
Well, again, happy International Women's Day. And I want to say that we awarded our International Women of the Year last year to Mayor Aki Sawyer, who actually has sent us an email today that I'm sharing with you. I hope this finds you well. Please know that that many thanks for your email and the attached letter. We truly appreciate the solidarity of the city of Charleston as Freetown celebrates 230 years. This letter will be read out by Melbourne Gardner at the Interfaith Service here in Freetown on the 11th of March. So again, this is the week-long celebration with our sister city in Freetown, Sierra Leone, the 7th through the 13th. So again, just wanting to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Roman, did you want to speak? We had you on the list. No, okay. Tony Daniel.
Good afternoon, council. I'm sure I'm stating the obvious in that the people that are going to help Ukraine will be the military, of which I spent 30 years defending and going wherever sent, the 4 corners of the world, 3 deployments. While I was gone, my assumption that you would be taking care of my family. That's kind of the unwritten deal we had. Obviously, that deal fell through. Now, I participated in a traffic and transportation meeting about a month ago. And in the meeting, Mr. McQueen and I agreed on every point there was. First, we agreed that the 1976 order was legal. I never said the 1976 order was illegal. I said the 1976 order called for temporary barricades. Mayor makes the point that it was a long time ago. Well, how long is a temporary barricade supposed to stay in place? And is a tree or a group of trees planted in the road a barricade? I would say no. When the police cordon off an area and they put up a barricade, they don't start planting trees, they put up a barricade. The roads are not to be closed without an order. No order exists. Without an order, closing a road is illegal. One of the opposition individuals is Mr. Finnegan. Mr. Finnegan only represents 43 people out of 93 in the neighborhood. He's talking about facts where 95% of the neighborhood agree with it. That fact is not borne out by the evidence. When he wrote to city council, only got 38 families to write that they wanted the closed roads to remain closed. And I'll remind you that the roads cannot be closed without an order from city council or a court order, and none of those exist. So why am I still here? I went before traffic transportation. Everything that I've said was borne out. Council and I agreed, your council, not my council, your council agreed. Roads can't be closed without order. Barricades are temporary. No order exists for the closing of the roads. And it's obviously unfair that all the traffic.
And then we did receive 2 comments. One person said that closing a road without a court order or order from council is illegal. And another person stated that roads were authorized as temporary barricades, not closed roads, and that 45 years was not temporary. And those were the only comments we received.
Anyone else? Okay, so next up is our petitions and communications. We have a number of appointments, mostly to our planning department, boards and commissions that help so much in our community with our design and approvals.
Can we take them all together?
We can take them all together, A through F.
Move for approval, A through F.
All right, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the ayes have it. Now we would like to
Mr.
call
Mayor,
Chairman Altman back up. Yes,
very
sir,
quickly,
Councilmember Seeking.
I don't know if there's any others that we just appointed to these very important commissions and boards, but there is one who's actually in the chambers I think we should recognize.
Okay.
And that's Mr. Seaton Brown is in the back, who's just been appointed by this council as a member of the Board of Architectural Review Large, which is no small job. It is no small job. It's a large job. So thank you in advance for your service. He will be a really terrific member. I can assure you that. So thank you for being here and
Thank you.
thank you in advance for your hard work.
Right.
And if you need any advice, by the way, here's your guy right here. He spent lots of time on boards and commissions right here, Councilmember Waring.
And I would just add y'all to remember that all of these boards and commissions are volunteer positions. And many of them, like the BAR large, are the time commitment is not a little one. It's a meaningful time contribution. So these board members are really contributing to the fabric of this city, not only in what it looks like, but by your service. So thank you, Mr. Brown, and please pass that along to your fellow board members. But remember that when you see these folks and give them a thanks. All right, next up is our report from the Commission on Women. Chairman Altman is with us.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, all of you. It has been an incredible honor for me to serve as the chair of this commission. And for those of you who might not know this, Mayor Tecklenburg resuscitated this communication. It had been in a box somewhere, that's all I can say, since the 70s. And we are still the only municipal commission on women in the state of South Carolina. There's also not even a state commission on women. So I'm delighted to be here, and I want to give you just a quick update on what we've been doing for the last 5 years. Our mission is to advise you on matters pertaining to the quality of life for women and their families here in the city of Charleston. And we operate under 2 basic principles that we adopted early on, which are to take care and or take charge, specifically around representing women and children who have no voice. To that end, this council, little history lesson here, has adopted resolutions in support of the UN Convention to Eliminate Discrimination Against Women. And you've also unanimously adopted a resolution to support the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment in the South Carolina legislature. Thank you. You're ahead of a lot of other cities, believe me. You have agreed to implement two very powerful and critical benefits for city employees, including paying for all city employees to have short-term disability insurance, which covers a percentage of maternity leave and extended illness. In January of 2020, you adopted a 12-week paid family leave program for city employees. And now, with COVID hopefully behind us, we'll fund that in 2023. The commission has sent letters of support to the South Carolina legislature as they move toward a family leave policy for state employees. Benefits, as you know, of this type go a long way in building employee loyalty and lowering attrition rates. Now, we rarely do anything on our own, and we're particularly proud of the collaborative projects that we've participated in over the last 5 years. And in particular, I would like to highlight the commission's work with the Charleston Police Department, which might not immediately seem like an obvious alliance, but it very much has been so. Chief Reynolds made no secret of his commitment to community policing, and we've worked alongside Deputy Chief Thompson, Lieutenant Mitchell, Victim Services Coordinator Catrice Smalls, to create community resource centers in both the Gadsden Green and the Robert Mills Manor communities. With the cooperation of the City Housing Authority, these centers have become a reality. And the plan is to have one in each of the public housing projects to provide support for the folks who live there, again, who are primarily women and their children. Deputy Chief Thompson has taken the lead on developing very important protocols for both human trafficking and domestic violence, and planning for a family justice center is well underway. We have a true partner in the Mayor's Office of Children, Youth, and Families. Mindy Sturm and Jamie Roper are regular attendees at our meetings, and when they have a need for specific resources, we do everything we can to get them for them. And our members represent over a dozen nonprofit organizations, and our combined networks can only be described as awesome. As Council Member Parker's proclamation put it, women are catalysts for the good, and we're going to do our best to live up to that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your service. Councilmember Shays.
Just a quick question, Madam Chair Lady. What is the status of the Equal Rights Amendment in the state of South Carolina?
It has not been ratified in the state of South Carolina.
But I understand we just need one more vote by a state, or is that?
Well, there's some discussion about that because they changed the deadline for it.
Please
everyone
come
could-
back to the
Sorry,
microphone.
technically we need one more state, but it's not looking good because there's discussion about which are the true deadlines, but we're not going to give up. Sure.
Great. Thank you again for your service and being with us tonight. Yeah. So next up is a report on our Resiliency and Sustainability Advisory Committee from Katie McCain.
Thank you, Mayor Tecklenburg and members of City Council. The Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee met last month, February 17th, and there were 11 of the 13 members present. Mayor Tecklenburg welcomed our new members. We're excited to have Councilmember Shealy back for some continuity, and Councilmember Seekings, we're excited to have you back on the committee again, and Councilmember Bowden, we're really excited for you to join as a new appointment. The first item on the agenda was our new compost program. So I took some time to explain we have a new food scrap drop-off program where we have a couple sites around the city where residents can bring their food scraps to have them composted. It's going really well. Since then, we have our February data in. We have over 700 participants, which is really exciting. And we composted over 4 tons of food scraps just in February. So we're going to track that data and analyze it, and we'll have more reports for you as we move forward. Then Christopher Morgan, our planning manager, talked about the comprehensive plan and how it relates to water. And he presented information about that you are all very familiar with. And finally, Dale Morris, our Chief Resilience Officer, talked about the Army Corps of Engineers flood mitigation project and how that relates to a much needed Rosemont resilience plan and also the water plan, which you all are very familiar with that too from his workshop last month. And that's all.
Any questions for Ms. McCain? And we welcome our new city council members who are now, we've rotated, who are on the committee. Council members Shealy and Bowden and Seekings. Yeah, so thank you all for agreeing to serve. Councilmember Parker, did you have a question?
Yes, she's a member of the Women's Commission and she's joining by Zoom.
Oh, great. Terrific. Thank you, Katie.
Very welcome.
So next up is an update on the city's response to COVID-19. Tracy McKee, I think, has just a very brief few comments. We're blessed that the numbers of cases is way down, continued that trend. The last couple of days have been in single digits in Charleston County, which is terrific. I'm still concerned by the number of deaths that I see in the state of South Carolina, though. I must tell you, I think it was Monday, there was over 100 deaths reported to COVID in the state of South Carolina. So maybe this is just the folks who had caught it some time ago and it's catching up with them, but we're still concerned about that. Kate, I mean, Tracy.
Yeah, deaths tend to lag. So we're still seeing the impacts from the latest surge. So thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. Next slide, please. So the number of cases do continue to decline. Over the last 2 weeks, Charleston County has seen another 78% decrease. Next, Berkeley, whoops. Is that me or you guys? So Berkeley County has actually gone down another 91% over the past 2 weeks. Percent positives have also decreased as well. You can see just a couple of months ago in Charleston County, percent positive was up at 32%. So we're down to 4.1%. So that's a significant improvement. Berkeley County, just at the end of January, was over 41% for percent positive in testing, and they are currently at 7.4%. Hospital admissions are down 27% in the past 7 days, and that is for both Charleston and Berkeley counties. So bearer of good news, finally. This is really exciting.
Zero.
A big goose egg. I'm not sure if I've ever been able to report at council a big goose egg. Well, maybe we did at some point, I don't remember, but we currently have 0 active cases and actually 0 who are waiting for test results right now.
I think this is the first time since we started.
I think it is. I don't recall another time. And so since the beginning of the pandemic, we've had 731 employee cases. A significant number of those, I can't remember the exact percentage, but a significant number of those were with the Omicron surge. So as y'all probably have heard, there's some new guidance that has come out from the CDC. This guidance is really based upon number of new hospitalizations, as well as the number of kind of the strain on the healthcare system. And currently, both Charleston and Berkeley counties are classified as medium. And so really what that means is basically all of the prevention strategies are really geared towards those that are at high risk for severe disease or death. So that's kind of the big takeaway for us at the moment with that medium classification. So in light of that new guidance, we've paused the testing and masking requirements for employees that received an accommodation. Of course, we'll continue to adapt as things may change, as we have since day one, watch the data and implement any evidence-based strategies that are recommended by medical professionals. And I also did want to point out that CDC, MUSC, and DHEC still advise that vaccines are highly protective against severe disease. and really remain the most potent and durable way to protect yourself from COVID-19. And of course, you can still use the DHEC Vax Locator to find a provider to get vaccinated or get your booster. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions y'all might have.
Great. All right. Any questions for Tracy? All right. Hearing none, we'll go on to our council communications. First up is a discussion of COVID-19 employee vaccine and mask mandate and testing procedures requested by Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Parker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, hey y'all, here I go. All right, the latest update that I have received has been that HR has suspended all mandatory testing, as we just heard from Ms. McKee, for unvaccinated employees as of yesterday. I honestly don't think that this means we move on and forget about it. I think we need to move forward and be sure that we know how to handle these situations and what the process will be in the future. The past 2 years have certainly brought unforeseen challenges to our city staff, mayor, council, and citizens. The city has reacted and pivoted as it felt it needed to during that time. I do want y'all to know that my main reason for bringing this before council tonight is not to debate CDC, DHEC, or MUSC data. It is just to clarify the process in which we handle these mandates for both our citizens attending meetings and for our employees moving forward. As a city, we already have huge staffing challenges, namely pay. Competing with the private sector is very difficult during a time when higher paying jobs are available and the cost of living continues to rise. I feel that a vaccine mandate will further push out potential hires and don't think it's necessary with the information that continues to reveal itself regarding COVID-19. I'll quote a few things Joe Biden said in his State of the Union. "Stop looking at COVID as a partisan dividing line and see it for what it is, a god-awful disease. Let's stop seeing each other as enemies and start seeing each other for what we are, fellow Americans." Mayor Tecklenburg said in his State of the City address, "City Hall has for more than 2 centuries been Charleston's home of we the people. We saw during a time not long ago, a month ago or so, for many it was not available if you did not have a vaccine card or a negative COVID test. Mr. Mayor said, trusting our fate as we always have to the grace of a loving God and the common sense and collective wisdom of our fellow citizens. Let's trust that we, the people, our fellow citizens, are moving forward with common sense and making choices that help protect themselves and those around them." Mr. Mayor said, "We can still hear the voice of the common sense majority, and our job in here is to improve our citizens' quality of life. I ran on a similar platform. Municipal government should use common sense and operate solely to provide core government services to the taxpaying citizens and not play partisan politics. These mandates have largely been made into a political weapon, and I say, we as a council for the city of Charleston say no to mandates, or at the very least, vote on them. So I ask, are masks, vaccine passports, and vaccine mandates on our employees and citizens an emergency measure, or are they routine day-to-day decisions? We all know that we are not in a state of emergency anymore, and both our Supreme Court and OSHA have ruled on vaccine mandates. I think both the mayor and council need to come to a conclusion on what the mayor's powers should be in the future in the event of ongoing measures being implemented. I think we all understand the form of government that we have, but I don't think our citizens do. I think it's a good idea to clarify what the mayor's role is in these instances and what council's role is. The mayor's office and human resources take advice from local health officials and make decisions without a council vote. And in some instances, council isn't even aware of certain procedures, as was made clear at the last council meeting. If the mayor can decide to implement these mandates, what is the point of having us, an elected council, as a voice for the constituents? I'll reiterate some of my comments from the previous meeting. These statements are from employees and citizens that I find concerning. I don't find it easy being an unvaccinated member of this department. We are expected to participate in weekly testing on our day off and on our own dime at times. The first 2 strikes are suspensions without pay. The 3rd strike is termination. It is worth noting that if you are vaccinated and require a test for work, you are allowed to use city insurance. If you are not vaccinated, you are not allowed to use your insurance. To an unvaccinated worker, this not only feels discriminatory, but resembles a punishment. In fact, the department has even proclaimed that if the mandate was outlawed by the state, the city of Charleston will still implement it. They'd rather inconvenience us than look forward to a resolution. It's pitted people against each other and has created an agitated, stressful environment for the unvaccinated. The mandate is affecting our quality of life. We should not be forced to wear a mask at work while our vaccinated peers do not have to. And most importantly, we shouldn't have to fear for our jobs and face daily discrimination. I'll be there tonight outside since I won't get in, and I will never get in as long as there's mandates. We're losing all confidence in the government. We should have the ability to decide what is best for our own body. Those were just comments received via email and phone. So I wanted to share that with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Any discussion?
Would anybody like to be heard? Councilmember Waring.
Yes. Do we, our unvaccinated people don't have to wear masks, and the ones who haven't been vaccinated has to wear masks?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Based on the latest trends, we've adjusted our policy as we have throughout this unprecedented healthcare crisis over the last couple of years. So as the numbers have come down, we I think effective just this week, are no longer requiring anyone to wear a mask. Still recommend it to people who are, as the CDC says, have some health exposure and a few other conditions, but there's no requirements anymore. And we're also have just recently suspended our testing requirement for those who were unvaccinated. And just to let you know, when they filed for their exemption not to be vaccinated, they agreed that they would, comply with the testing protocol that we had put forward in the policy at that time, which we took. We set that policy really kind of in conjunction with both the County of Charleston and the City of North Charleston. We kind of were in this together, the three jurisdictions, and we were challenged in court over this matter, and it went to Judge Norton, who upheld the county and both cities' policies that under the circumstances they were appropriate. Thank you. Any other discussion, comments? Councilmember Parker, back to you.
Sure, yeah, just to follow up on that particular court case, it was on the injunction, not the legality of it. I have lawyers in the room. Can you help me there?
I think that's incorrect. I read the judge's opinion, and he issued an injunction. He denied the injunction, and then he ruled subsequently to that as well. So it is the law of the case. Right.
But not the legality of it.
He ruled on the legality of it. It is legal. It is the law of the case.
Councilmember Bowden.
Not that this may be a pedantic point, but to issue a temporary restraining order or an injunction, the judge has to evaluate whether the plaintiffs have a likelihood of success on the merits. And so they will go through an analysis of whether the plaintiff's claim is likely to succeed. And if so, whether they're going to experience irreparable harm that can only be prevented by an injunction. So they do actually go through that analysis. So I don't know about the particular posture of that case, but in denying an injunction, they would say, and this was the basis because there was no likelihood of success on merits.
All right.
So, and just again,
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's more about, I'm hoping to discuss the process, okay? The process. So this policy, while it has been lifted, yes, as of yesterday, our unvaccinated employees are no longer required to test weekly or wear masks. But as our HR department said, our policy remains in effect, okay? So they can bring this back. And when I say they, I mean, really the mayor holds that power because I have, that's how it's happened in the past, right? There's no vote on council for these policies. So this policy remains in effect and it can be brought back. Also, we still do have a vaccine mandate for any new hires. I certainly don't want to be the tip of the iceberg here and push out any new hires in an already tight job market that we have. There's a great job market, but the city is really struggling to get and keep employees to help provide those core government services. So again, I would like to discuss the process moving forward.
Councilmember Rappel.
All right, since we're talking about the law here, I'll just add some thoughts to this. You know, under South Carolina law, municipalities have various options in terms of the way they want to be formed. City of Charleston has, for, you know, a long, long time been a strong mayor form of government. And that means the mayor essentially serves as the CEO of the city of Charleston. He's the executive branch. He's also, you know, essentially in charge of the legislative process. So in a sense, he's the president and the speaker of the house and the ombudsman, and he can play the piano pretty well. So well, what about the piano thing? My point of, there's a judicial part.
Okay, order.
Okay, my whole point of this is that the mayor runs the various departments and the staffs.
I know this.
Yeah.
We're telling citizens and-
Sure. So for the you know, people that are watching on YouTube, I mean, that's the rule. I mean, the mayor has a lot of power under our form of government. He's allowed to set certain policies for the city. That's what he's done. I think that, you know, at various points in time, there, like on a lot of issues, there's disagreement and differences of opinions, but that's how the city of Charleston is set up. There's other ways the city could be set up, but that's the system that we've got. And I suppose that at any point in this process, if there was an overwhelming feeling on council that something ought to have been done differently or curtailed, you know, it would take 7 of us to, you know, get together and push an ordinance forward. And I guess that's how things would operate in moving forward. But that's, I guess, some thoughts on the process.
Councilmember Gregory.
I see it a little differently. There's a provision in the rules that clearly says all power lies in council. All power lies in council. And the mayor is also a member of this council with 1 vote. As for the mayor's role in administering the policies of this body, yes, there are some administrative things that the mayor can do that may be procedural in nature. But when it comes to a policy issue, okay, that policy has to be voted on by this body and carried out by the mayor based upon my interpretation of the rules. So I'm
Well, you certainly legislate, and if you,
yes,
I head the executive branch, so I administer the laws that y'all pass. Y'all want to pass an ordinance, a law, you can do it. Like Councilmember Pell just said, 7 of us get together and pass a new ordinance. I'm going to enforce it for you. That's my job. It's a microcosm of what happens on the national scene, where the president is the head of the administration and carries out the laws of Congress. Same kind of thing. You'll note from time to time that the president will issue an executive order. And some people like them, some people don't. But until Congress comes along and passes a law that counteracts some executive order that's been ruled upon, you know, it stands as part of the administration. And similar situation here on a much smaller microcosm scale. Councilmember Waring.
I agree with you, Mr. Miller. I just have to comment that Councilman Appel gave you so much power. He didn't see it, but you actually caused the mayor to blush.
Mayor, just for clarification, on Councilmember Parker's position, just so that I'm clear, we don't want, you're advocating no mandates, period, right? Without coming to council.
Would you like me to?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that would be ideal. But again, like I said in my written speech, I mean, I certainly think that we should have a process moving forward because we don't have the laws. What's written right now are the administrative rules and how the mayor can carry those out. You know, anything that, you know, he pushes it to AR or HR, it happens. these are much stricter, implementing mandates and testing procedures moving forward. I think we need to have a process. I mean, y'all have seen the past 2 years. Someone told me, you're just flying by the seat of your pants. I mean, you didn't know what you were doing, right? For 2 years, nobody did during the pandemic. But that's what I'm saying. Maybe moving forward, we have a process for these, and me, again, I'm one vote.
Yeah. I mean, just for clarity, I thought we did have a process in place, especially when it came to emergency orders, of which we council voted on and the mayor implemented. That's the process. Now, I would also suggest, though, maybe.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I mean, every single action we took with respect to COVID came through council. Okay. For council to say yay or nay. We didn't, and all of us didn't agree all the time either. Okay. But 7 votes normally prevail. And once those votes are prevailed, the mayor has the responsibility as the executive branch to carry out the mandates of council, period. Administratively, I don't know whether or not the mayor has that kind of power. I don't think he does. I think it still has to come to this body for a vote. Now, maybe we're interpreting the rules differently, but that's how I interpret it. And further, maybe what we need to do in terms of process, because I think you're correct, we should stop referring these issues to the Human Resources Committee, not the Human Resources Department, but the Human Resources Committee, which is made up, of council members who can then make a recommendation to the body of a whole. And I think that's the way it's supposed to be done anyway. So I'm not disagreeing with you, to make sure that we're clear. It should come through Human Resources.
If I may add, Councilmember Parker, on this, with this body over the last 2 years with this unprecedented healthcare crisis, I still would view the whole history of it as being a crisis for our country and our world. I made a point to listen, as I've said before, to our healthcare professionals. I relied a lot on MUSC, but Roper St. Francis was there as well. And we always were attuned to what the federal government was putting out through the CDC. And I happened to, for many, many meetings, attended Johns Hopkins professionals as well. And then we would consult with city staff and make recommendations to council. I can't tell you how many extra meetings we had over the last 2 years. Wasn't that right, Madam Clerk? The number of meetings that this council had, literally, I know it doubled, if not tripled. And
I think it was 67. I think that's.
We went over this issue upside and down. And if I may say, I bet council got a little tired of all our COVID-19 updates. Every meeting for the last 2 years, including those special meetings, we would have COVID updates. And thank you to Tracy McKee, but other staff members as well. Honestly, she did a tremendous job compiling all the information from MUSC and the others. And all these matters were discussed with council along the way. Both the emergency ordinances we had all throughout, and all the discussions about masking, it went on and on. So here we are today. I think we're blessed that the numbers we're seeing have come to where they are. But that's not to say that, you could have another variant of this virus come forward and have another spike. We've seen it now 3 or 4 times if you look back over the last 4 years. And I respectfully believe that we need to, even though there's almost nothing left of our current policy that was upheld by a federal judge, that we need to keep it in place just in the event we need it again without, having to recreate the wheel. So a lot of thought study and thoughtfulness went into this over the last couple of years. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Okay, thank you. And
Back to Councilmember Parker.
sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, sorry, and I lost my train of thought, Mr. Greger. Yes, so that's what I thought. So I thought that as well. I thought that when a mandate, whether a mask and vaccine passport to enter city buildings or a vaccine mandate on our employees and weekly testing would go through a committee and then to council and then, but the way I understand it from HR, it comes from the mayor. The mayor decides this, we're implementing this, put it on them. And that's what HR told me, because I assumed it went through committee as well. And this is the only reason I'm bringing it up is because what is the process? And I think that our city employees deserve to know it as well, because as a body, are we just going to throw this back at them when the next variant comes back? They're going to be back to weekly testing, or I think city employees have a right to know, what the process is in the future,
I don't disagree with you at all, but I think that given the circumstances that we were working under, the mayor just brought it to the body of the whole, instead of going through the committee. Because if we'd gone through the committee, the process would have taken longer. So the mayor brought the policy to the body of the whole, and he can. And if the body of the whole votes on it, it goes through. And it does appear when that happened that we missed the process by not going through human resources and then to council, unless it was an emergency. So things were a little different.
We have some other council members that would like to be recognized. Councilmember Saccharin and then Bowden, then Appel.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to, for the record, say that Councilwoman Parker's, in my opinion, 100% accurate. I don't remember voting on the vaccine mandate for staff.
Right.
That's your question, right? I mean, that's ultimately your inquiry, and I agree with you. So there needs to be a process. It needs to be articulated to staff. I don't remember personally voting on that part.
Okay.
So.
Councilmember Bowden and then back to Appel.
I appreciate the process arguments. I think it's good to have those, certainly, but I don't want the substance to get lost in this. I mean, there is a 2-year track record now of realistic decisions based on what healthcare professionals are saying, increasing when numbers are going up, when people are dying in larger numbers, decreasing when those things go down, and that happening, really the city being pretty nimble about it. I know that plenty of people have lots of ideologies about this and they just won't take the vaccine for whatever reason or whatever it is. But, just on the substantive point, the city's been doing a very good job of being reasonable about this policy. I sort of agree that it should get worked out. Predictability is a good thing, but let's not pretend that this has been some heavy-handed totalitarian mandate, which I think is sort of the conversation that's going on outside of this room.
Councilmember Appel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to echo what Jason said. You don't remember voting on a vaccine mandate for employees because we never did. Yes, we passed some emergency ordinances during the height of COVID, which allowed the mayor to have some exemplary powers. But the idea that this council votes on every single HR policy that the city enacts is a fallacy. That's not how it works around here. In my analogy to the federal government, the various departments in the city are akin to the agencies in the federal government, where every day there's multiple directives and policies that are set. Yes, on some core fundamental level, everything emanates from the wellspring of council. To that, I absolutely agree with Councilman Gregory, but the day-to-day management and administration of the departments has nothing to do with city council. It is 100% the mayor. Now, we can claw some of that power back prospectively. That's something that absolutely could happen, and that's maybe a discussion worth having. But I do think it's important to set the record straight and be clear on the process here. that under our system of government, under the strong mayor form, there's a lot of inherent authority that rests in the executive branch. And there's some benefits to that. There's some costs to that. I mean, look at some of the jurisdictions around the area that have weak mayor forms of government. It ain't all roses and sunshine over there as well. So these are challenging questions, but I think it's healthy and important to have these discussions periodically so we make sure that we're all on the same page and we strike the proper balance moving forward.
So if I may, case in point, you take our employee manual that we update every year with various edits and changes. And we don't bring that back to council every year to prove every change in our employee handbook, right? We don't. We do follow any ordinances that this council passes are consistent with our employee policies and our employee handbook. So if we pass an ordinance saying that we are going to be treat everybody fairly and equally, we make sure that our policy handbook reflects that. But no, we don't approve every employee policy that comes along. That's done on administration level, but consistent with anything that y'all pass. Y'all want to pass ordinance giving us direction about any matter for that matter, let us have it. Yes, sir. All right. So if we could move on to the next item, which is also requested by Councilmember Parker, is to request to receive South Carolina Attorney General opinion regarding the same matter, COVID-19 employee mandates. Councilmember Parker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, back to, again, just the process. I don't know about y'all, but I would like a strong legal opinion, not one. I've circled, I've spoken to lawyers, I've circled around and around. I understand our form of government, as well as I hope some of the citizens, if they're listening now or looking back later, they'll understand. But the mayor and legal stated that I could request an opinion from the attorney general, but the attorney general's office said that it needs to come from the mayor, legal, or council as a whole. Legal would not do that for me. They take the advice of they can only act on the, if the mayor asks them or council asks them. That's what I was told. I request this evening that council requests a legal opinion from Attorney General Wilson on the executive power of the mayor to use to implement his mandate and testing policy on our city's employees and the legality of requiring vaccine passports at city sanctioned events. Hopefully from there, we can come up with a path forward and how and when to handle situations that we've seen in the past 2 years and have a written process for how they should be handled in the future.
Councilmember Pell and then Gregory.
So, Councilmember Parker, you have the right as a public official to request an attorney general opinion. And if Attorney General Wilson told you that you don't, he is wrong on the law. I have personally read attorney general opinions more than I want to admit in my life doing what I do. And what you'll see when you read these attorney general opinions, which by the way are not binding, they're just an opinion from an attorney that's, he's been wrong, he's been right. You see in the top of these letters, he actually responds to the person who's requesting the opinion. And I actually pulled a couple of these as I was preparing for tonight's council meeting, just to make sure, because I wanted to make sure, can city council members request attorney general opinions? They absolutely can. Now, I've seen them co-sign before where like a group on council will get together. Maybe there'll be 3 or 4 council members, but I've also seen plenty of them where there's individual council members requesting the opinion. I would encourage you to do that. You can go to Attorney General Wilson's website. He actually has that ability to do it. And maybe you'll find some people on council that'll co-sign it with you if you ask them about it. I don't know. But, our legal counsel has opined on this issue. I think you've got the right to seek the advice of the Attorney General. I'm surprised to hear that he doesn't think he needs to respond to you. I think he does. I think that's his job, is to respond to public officials. You are absolutely a public official as much as the mayor is and as much as anybody else on council is. So I would encourage you to request in writing to Attorney General Wilson and his team to address these issues that you've brought forward. I think you've got the power to do that.
Councilmember Gregory.
I agree totally that you have the authority to do it. But one thing, when you're dealing with the bureaucracy, okay, you've got to keep going until you get the answer you want. Seriously, okay? Especially when you're dealing at that level, okay? Just keep going up the line, all the way up. And the best place to go is to the decision maker directly so that you can get the answer. Otherwise, you'll just be out there, okay? Go to the top, all the way.
Well, thank you both for saying that.
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Thank you both for saying that. And like I said, I have requested that. I've spoken with legal, and that was the response that I got from their office. So I will certainly try again. I mean, if that's where we want to go with this, but I would like the support. I mean, if we can all feel differently about this situation, but I am certainly here as a voice for our city employees, and I will always side with the law. So whether these mandates are lawful, unlawful, I certainly want to hear that. You know, y'all are all attorneys. I'm not an attorney. I just want to know if it's lawful and how we can move forward with a process. So that's all I wanted to bring.
Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Ross and certainly, what's your name? No, Gregory. But at the end of the day, it's our collective counsel. And I really like the conversation on process. I think we all did. One thing about this COVID pandemic, none of us knew what we were doing 2 years ago. I mean, truthfully, and we were kind of learning as we went. The mayor would get with his team, bring a policy forward to council. We debated, brought in the medical professionals from, as the mayor said, we got a chance to question those doctors, and we made decisions. And you're right, Councilman Gregory, they weren't always unanimous. But now that we've got 2 years experience in this, when it comes to policy going forward, we should know it. The mayor's better at it over the last 2 years, and the council members who are around this table was better at it after 2 years experience. Such that if we were to have a spike, well, we had a spike 2 years ago and we had no policy, none. What is that policy going forward? I think it would be good for that to be known and come to council. And I think you get a better answer on that going forward from this body and this mayor than, I mean, I respect the Attorney General, but just like Councilmember Pella said, that's one opinion on that day. I think you get more results, what you've done with your first posing the question, because we should have it going forward. We should know what's going to be next, I guess. Hopefully we don't have to use it again. But those double zeros were very impressive by me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Seekings.
Just very briefly, because I'm sure we're going to come back to discussing process again. I would just suggest that every member around this table read section 2-96, which is very clear and it's very simple. It enumerates 1B, 1 through 9, the powers of the mayor and the powers of council. And to just read it. And then when we have this discussion again, I mean, to use an imperfect analogy, the mayor is the chief executive officer, we are the board. The only difference is we don't have a chairman of the board. In some ways, the chairman of the board is probably the citizens, and the mayor's job is to carry out the day in and day out affairs of the city and to implement the policy as created by council, of which he is a member. And it's very clear. And the two powers that he's got that we don't have to authorize him to do, the ordinance mandates he does it is one is he gets to hire department heads. That's his job. And two is to present a budget to us to vote on. And then go forth and prosper as the chief executive officer implementing our policies. So just read it. It's a good sort of thing for all of us to understand. I think one of the things that you hear a lot about is that, we have a strong mayor form of government, and that means that there's sort of these superpowers in the mayor. That's not what it means. Strong mayor form of government is just what I said. He presents the budget, sets the sort of the financial goals for the city, and then puts his staff around him and then implements policy. If we had a city administrator, the mayor wouldn't put the budget forward, the city administrator would, and then the business would run through the city administrator's office. Instead, because of our form of government, it runs through the mayor's office. That's the difference between a strong mayor and a city manager form of government. Doesn't mean that, all of a sudden he goes in the phone booth and comes out as a super mayor. Sorry, mayor. But he does.
I accept that.
So I think, and I do agree with Councilmember Waring and others who were here through the whole COVID. We did learn as we go. And I think one of the things that's instructive is for us to, you always have after action review of things, right? I mean, it's a really good thing to do. And we probably need to have a little after action review of the manner in which we handled some of the things. I mean, Councilmember Saccharin says, I don't remember voting for it because we didn't. Well, whether that should be something voted on is a discussion we ought to have once we understand what 296 says. Do we need to amend it? That's up to us. Do we need to make sure it's followed? That's clearly up to us. So I think having this conversation is really good, but let's have a baseline understanding of what the mayor's powers are, what the council's powers are, and let's go forward. And I do also want to say, I agree with Councilmember Appel that you can clearly seek an attorney general's opinion. You got to do it though, as an elected official. I don't think that you are empowered to use the city staff to do it. That would be something, again, the mayor administers the staff, so you just have to go and do it, okay? Right, so anyway, I don't know that clears up a whole lot, but at least it gives everyone some homework to go back so we can sort of have a baseline understanding. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for indulging.
Thank you. Any other discussion or comments? Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just again, thank you for that discussion. Again, like I said, not here to debate it, just talk about process. We have a lot of lawyers on council, just talking about process moving forward. So thank you, gentlemen, and I hope that we can continue these conversations.
Great. Thank you very much. So next up is our council committee reports. First is our Committee on Recreation, which had a lengthy meeting yesterday. Councilmember Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yep, the Recreation Committee did meet yesterday at 2:00. And to start us off, Troy Miller with the Friends of Muni gave us a great report on the municipal golf course. As you know, it went under extensive renovations in 2020, and then the course reopened at the end of 2020 in December. And after the renovations, we still obviously offer our residents a very affordable way to enjoy the game. But now it's on a first-class facility that has ranked 19th best in the United States by golf.com and Golf Magazine. But the course went from having 55,000 rounds in 2019 to 67,000 rounds in 2021. So they've also gone from 350 players with the junior golf program up to 1,000 players now in the junior program. So the course was also awarded the 2022 South Carolina High School Championship and the 2022 South Carolina Public Links Championship. And our municipal golf course has been written about and talked about in at least a dozen national and international publications. And now that national attention is drawing tourists to our municipal golf course. So the renovation of the golf course also helped with drainage improvements in the Woodland Shores area, as well as on the golf course itself, of course. And, traditionally, our municipal golf course hasn't made money. In fact, it's probably lost between $50,000 and $100,000 annually in net income operating. But in 2021, the golf course made $1.2 million more in revenue than it ever had before, ended up with a profit of $550,000, which was a $650,000 improvement over 2019. So the Muni is also working with the Evans Scholarship Foundation, working with rising ninth graders for an opportunity to be paid caddies. And they also will have an opportunity to earn a full scholarship, including room and board, through several different, through many colleges. And they also have a focus on diversity, equity, inclusion with that program. So some needs the Muni had that they brought to us. They have a need for a T-sheet management system that'll increase the accessibility and also an ease of use system. And what that'll do is it'll actually bring in more revenue from out of towners because they can use this app. They can use this thing to log their tee times much easier. It'll bring more people from out of town here. So they also asked for continued landscaping, continued drainage updates. They'd like to see the Muni become like a community center with expanded facilities. So they're asking to have a pavilion looked at that would have restrooms and a snack bar on the golf course. And that would also be the home for that junior program too, would be that pavilion area. The pavilion would be an event space for corporate events or any kind of events before and after golf tournaments, before and after play. The Friends of the Muni project that the combination of the T-sheet management system and the pavilion could increase the revenue that they saw last year of $550,000 to a profit of maybe $750,000 or $1 million. So, but an updated clubhouse to create a community center and gathering place was also another ask that may be further down the road than some of these others. But they're wanting to expand the reach for municipal golf in Charleston to everybody. They want to provide a place for everyone to come together and gather and celebrate important moments in their lives and become a crown jewel in recreation for Charleston. So in addition to the golf, we also had a presentation from Fern White, who represented pickleball players in Charleston. And she explained the explosion of the sport locally and nationally, and how it's really taken off, and that it's played by all ages. Sometimes it's a misnomer of certain ages, but all ages are participating in pickleball, and they welcome everybody. But they're currently chalking their own lines on the existing tennis courts at Bees Landing. She explained that it's quite a bit of work, requires someone to come out an hour before play to draw the lines. And she showed some slides that compared cities of Camden, Aiken, Greenville, and North Charleston, and how many pickleball courts each one of those cities or towns had compared to their populations. And those cities showed anywhere from 10 to 32 courts with smaller populations to our city, and where we only have right now, according to her slides, we're 4 pickleball courts that are open and available for 150,000 residents. That's not exactly accurate, and I'm going to get to that, Councilman Seekins. I see you shaking your head. She explained in the chart how pickleball can have over 5 times as many participants per day as the same space as a tennis court, considering the space required, the amount of time, and the number of players. She said that the pickleball community would be willing to chip in for lines or some improvements on courts. Director Kronsberg let us know that we heard about pickleball in the public engagement portion of the master plan, and that it is included, although it's included in a long list of considerations, it's certainly considered in the master plan. And Recreation Director Yarborough let us know that that we are talking with Roper St. Francis about the possibility of extending some hours on the pickleball courts there at the Waring Center. There are no lights on those courts, but they're currently not open on weekends, so that maybe we could possibly do that. They currently close at 7 p.m. over at the Waring Center, so hopefully we can extend maybe at least until through the daylight hours possibly. There are 2 tennis courts on Mary Eutsey that have lights and pickleball lines. However, Ms. Smith shared her concern over the condition of those courts. But pickleball is also being offered in the gym at Bees Landing 3 days a week in the morning from 10:30 to 12:30. And there are 11 courts with pickleball lines on them in gyms across Charleston. Capital Project had lined out those courts last year. And we actually have someone with the City Rec Department, Des Brown, who's given pickleball lessons on the east side currently. So we spoke about converting racquetball courts at Park Shore, maybe using an area that the mayor mentioned under I-26 and maybe some other locations. As a reference to what we'd be looking at financially, it was mentioned that Moultrie Playground costs was about $100,000 for courts, but that was without lights, and that was also pre-COVID. Director Kronberg met last week with our consultant team to start the implementation of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. They'll be having another meeting on March 23rd, along with the BFRC and consultants, and we'll report out to the Recreation Committee in April. We're accepting applications right now for the enterprise manager position, and Lori Yarborough will be starting interviews next week, and I believe Tom O'Rourke's going to assist her in that. So we had a report on Stony Field. Charleston County School District converted the field into a synthetic field, and Charleston County is also fixing a water leak right now. There's parking lot, entry plaza, and fencing work being done. The Army Corps next door is also concerned with a landfill cap. We're working through some issues there. It may cause some delays to meet the requirements for the Army Corps to protect that cap on the landfill. The home stands have been updated and painted. Lights were updated to LED lights, and progress continues with the contractor right now. So we have an early May projected completion for the Carr Richardson Park. I went out there. It's a beautiful piece of property, and I'm very excited to see that open hopefully in May if they stay on track. Fort Pemberton, we're working with neighborhood associations to have engagement and feedback. We've submitted for a land and water conservation grant for $261,000. We should know in September if we're awarded, and those funds would provide for the first phase and help us move us toward preparing for a park opening there at Fort Pemberton. So we also discussed some public-private and some public-public partnerships that we have going on. And unfortunately, Daniel Strickland and Lance Tyner had some technical difficulties. They were trying to get in to make a presentation on the Maybank Tennis Center, but we will have them on in our April meeting. So that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor. There was nothing to vote on, though.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. Any questions? Councilmember Appel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was really looking forward to this committee report, and Councilman Shealy did an excellent job summarizing everything. But I think we really owe Troy Miller and everybody with the Friends of the Muni really a round of applause. I mean, this is a absolute model of a private-public partnership that takes a city asset to the next level, and we're making big bucks over there. Okay, this is not some failing venture that has to be subsidized through taxpayer dollars. They are carrying their weight and beyond. I think that as Councilmember Shealy indicated, they're going to be coming to see us for some help and some improvements. And I think we ought to remember just how far they've come, some of these statistics that were rattled off today, because when you bring your A game, we ought to reciprocate with that and reward the sort of really excellent work that the municipal golf course is doing. And the only other thing I would say is that, I'm a big fan of parks, recreation, water access. I'm very excited about Fort Pemberton in my district, WPAL Park in my district. Last year, following the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, we considered and unfortunately rejected a bond referendum to raise some serious money to help move a lot of these projects forward. I think we ought to think about giving that another try this year. Maybe, have some more dialogue amongst ourselves in the mayor's office so we can maybe get a little bit more clarity with respect to what some of that money is being used for. Nobody likes raising taxes around here, but I think if we go to our public and we identify specific park improvements that touch each and every one of our districts, and we demonstrate a track record of success there, we can get public buy-in and support for this. So let's keep the momentum going on this. I think we need to be applying more resources and funding. I think the municipal golf course, Troy Miller, Friends of the Muni are setting the model for how you take these sort of enterprises to the next level. And thank you for that excellent report, and let's keep pushing forward on all fronts.
Thank you, Councilmember Shade.
I think Councilmember Appel took most of my thunder. What I wanted to say, I'm not a member of the Recreation Committee, but I did join in because I missed our first municipal golf course commission meeting that was held last week, and just reemphasize the things that they're looking for in the future with the pavilion in the clubhouse. That is a wonderful opportunity for us to get on. It's going to increase the availability of that facility to the public, and it's going to, of course, generate some more income. That if you haven't played out there, if you are a hacker like I am, it is a magnificent course. And I made this comment at the Recreation Committee meeting. You get lost in the beauty of that course. You just want to walk around and observe and take in the marsh views, the oak views out there. And so they have done a terrific job, a true collaboration between public and private enterprise coming together. And we just need to make sure they got the momentum on this. Let's keep it going forward. So I think even better days are ahead of the Muni. I mentioned this at the meeting as well, and I've been in contact with Jason Kronsberg about Park Shore. I want to give him a big shout out. A citizen was raising some concerns about Park Shore. I've shared those concerns with Lori and Jason. They got on it immediately. If you haven't been out there recently, it's just a magnificent what they've done, the Park Shore Park. Thank you, Jason, for your team in doing that. And we've got some old racquetball courts, which I think is not being used for racquetball, but for some other nefarious conduct out there. And we're offering that as a pickleball court to knock those things down and get that up and running. So thank you. Good report, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Jason, again, for all the work that you've done on that out in Park Shore.
Councilmember Waring, did you want to be heard?
Councilman Mitchell said no.
Thank you, Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, it was just a great report. I did everything that was said.
So if you think about those numbers and the fact that a good bit of the capital for our improvements were raised by the Friends of the Muni, it's about a 3-year complete return on investment back to the city based on the turnaround in revenue that you cited there. So that's remarkable. I did want to point out, even though at the time, I think that report was done by Ms. White, there may have been 4 dedicated pickleball courts. We've added a couple since then. We painted 11 courts. I don't think she was counting the 4 courts at the Waring Center, or there are 4 courts on Daniel Island at the tennis center over there. So really altogether, not counting the gym use, there's about 25 courts now in the city where you can play pickleball. They're not all dedicated courts. Some of them are conversion or, got pickleball lines on the tennis court. And we need more. And that's why we were brainstorming any other hard surface that we might can add them. So we're really working on that and going to add some more in the near future, but there are more available than cited in that report. So anyway, thank you. Great report, Councilmember. Next up is our Committee on Public Works and Utilities, Councilmember Waring. Oh, Councilmember Mitchell now.
Just before Councilman Waring come forward. I just want to mention that since we're part of recreation, that the CCPLC organization that is on the east side with Mr. Jones, we've been working last year with the general manager of the Charlotte Hornets, and they have issued 100 tickets to Mr. Jones to bring some of the young kids up to the game up in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I think they'll be playing the Seawall Hawks, I believe, wherever it is. Well, that game is with 100 tickets. So the only thing they're required to do is provide the transportation, but the tickets will be given to them. And so what he's going to do is some of the volunteer coaches that work with the recreation department is give 50 tickets over to them that they can have at least bring 10 of each one of their kids up there. That they manage over there. And with each 9 young people that's going, you have to have, they're gonna have a chaperone for each 9 kids. So that's something that they will be able to see things in actuality with the basketball, with the with things like that. And the general manager, I was there when the general manager called, and this is something they're doing for the community, for underserved community. And I advise them this we can try to get together and have it make sure it's a diverse group of young people that's going down there when this could happen. And we have one of our former council members is also working with him to try to assist him in providing transportation so far as the bus. And we also reach out to the mayor too, to see what we can do, and anyone else that, have any things with buses, big trailway buses, big buses like that, to let us know so we can try to get this transportation set up for the young people to go there. And if you even want to give anything toward it, you can contact Michael Wack from the city of Charleston, who's going to be working with us also so far as the city standpoint. Thank you.
Councilwoman Waring.
And are we to the Public Works report?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're ready for that.
And let's see updates. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Committee on Public Works and Utilities did meet yesterday. Item A is a outstanding work on all of the city's behalf. This low batteries seawall and the appropriations to extend it, I think, another 1,800 feet. It's been going along, frankly, at record pace and at a record price. On that point, I'm gonna defer this part of the report to Councilman Seekings. Would you like to have any comments on that?
I'll be brief. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, fellow council members. If you haven't been down to the low battery, I really would encourage you to go and take a look and see what we're doing with not actually our property tax dollars, but with our hospitality dollars. Tourism is paying for an incredible renovation of a wall that was originally built in the early 1900s and has basically been untouched since that time. And this project is not a new build, it's a retrofit of that wall, which was originally built by and large on helical wood pilings, on wood in the water. So it's an amazing project. And just a couple of things for you to know as we vote to approve, which we already did through Ways and Means, the contract for both the construction and the construction management of phase 3 of the low battery seawall, which will be done in 4 phases. Phase 3 is really the combination of 2 phases. It's really about a phase and 3/4. It's 1,800 feet. And just so y'all know, the first phase was 850 feet. And the cost per foot to do that project from the outset was about $11,800 a foot. We didn't know much about what we were doing. Well, they didn't, we didn't know anything, mobilization, the like. So, and there was one parklet built. If you go down there, there's little bump outs at cross streets we call them parklets. They're great. There are benches on them. You can recreate. So we did it for about $11,800 a foot. Phase 2, which is about to close out, which is 1,100 feet, was done for about $9,500 a foot, which is really pretty remarkable. And the last phase, which we're about to vote on, if approved, when it's completed, will be done for $10,444 a foot, with not 1, not 2, but 3 of these parklets. Now think about that just for a second. What's happened in the last 3 years in terms of the cost of doing business in the world of construction? It's gone up somewhere in the vicinity of 30 to 40% in some instances. And this is a project where we're pouring concrete like crazy, and concrete's one of the things that's gone up. So the team that is out there has been amazing. Internally, Matt and his team and Frank Newham have done a great job managing this project. Gulfstream, which is now going to be the phase 3 contractor, has done a great job. And I think apropos of the fact that we're talking about Women's History Month, and we got a report tonight on the Commission for Women, the manager of this project, the construction manager of this project for the engineer, who has been out there every single day, rain, snow, heat, cold. And if you go and meet with her and you look at her boots, you'll know how hard she has worked, is a woman named Laura Beauclair. And she's done this project pretty much from a management perspective on her own. It's been really amazing. So I commend this project to you. I really encourage you all to go down there and take a look at it, to meet the team that's putting it in place, to talk to Frank Newham. It's a victory for the city that we're here, that we've done it to date on schedule and on budget. And that was no small mistake. Mr. Mayor, we started thinking about this long before you were elected. Councilmember Waring and Councilmember Gregory were probably the two of the biggest hawks on making sure that we put enough money aside, but not too much. And then we had a good finance plan. So I hope this will stand as a model going forward. We've got lots of challenges going forward with large scale infrastructure projects. This is a pretty darn good model for it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for handing this off to me and allowing me to just put a few words in. But it's really going to be an incredible amenity when it's done, and not just to protect us, but to allow us a 1 mile long, really incredible linear park. So please go down and look at it. I thank you all for your support of this project. It's something that's going to be an incredible benefit to the peninsula, to the city, and to the region. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, you pulled together a wonderful team on this one. We'll have a few words on this.
Well, thank you. And there's not much to add. You covered it very well, Councilmember Seekins. I would just state a correction to the article I saw this morning, which said that this was the final phase. It's not.
Right.
This originally we had planned this to be in 5 construction phases. We've knocked it down to 4, but this is just phase 3. So this is going to take the reconstruction almost to King Street, but not quite. And then we'll have one more phase to get us from where this ends down to the corner, down to the High Battery, which is the shortest distance, but it includes White Point Gardens. And so there will be more park-like considerations in the final phase 4. So we're getting there, but this isn't the last phase. We will still have one more to go after this one. And anyway, I want to point that out.
And I do think that article was corrected. We talked about that today. And one of the things, just I might add really quickly, and thanks to Councilmember Waring and the mayor who sit on the board of Charleston Water Systems, Charleston Water Systems has contributed an enormous amount of money to this project. And this phase alone, they're putting in $2.7 million. And what that money is used for is for the relocation and upgrading of the utilities along there, including the water supply. And once we get done with phase 3, the good news about phase 4 is there's very little utility work that needs to be done. Phase 3 is probably the biggest portion of it, as is evidenced by the fact that it's the biggest contribution by Charleston Water Systems. So once we get to phase 4, we've got the park to worry about where we don't have as many issues with utilities and getting in there. So
good.
Thank you.
Charleston Water Systems has been a wonderful partner on this one. As a matter of fact, there's a piece of property that the mayor, would you touch on that piece of property that was going to be a green space that now will also contribute to hopefully some of our flooding issues that we buying from CWS?
So there's a lot at the corner of Limehouse and Murray Boulevard. It was vacant. Charleston Water Service had bought it because they needed to put a shaft at that corner down to their deep sewer tunnel. And so they were done with all that and we're in a position to sell the property. And thankfully, they partnered with us and we came to an agreement. The city is going to buy the property. We have that under contract. And we have the opportunity because one of our archway tunnel lines, one of the main ones, ends there as an outfall. In the future, we'll be able to put a pump station to help with our drainage of the peninsula. And that won't take up the whole lot. So in this whole theme that Councilmember Seekins mentioned of having this linear park, we're going to be able to add a little more than a linear portion there to that piece of property and have a park-like feature along with reserving what we feel will be definitely needed, a future pump station at that site. So once again, as noted, Charleston Water System has been an amazing partner, not just on this project, but in just about everything we do that goes under the surface.
Keep in mind that this is a linear park. It's one of the best linear parks this side of the Mississippi. It belongs to all of us. All of us. My wife and I go down there often after church. We circle from St. Patrick's and going down to the Battery and take a little walk. So I enjoy it. I invite all y'all to do that. We live in an international city. If you don't believe it, walk down our sidewalks and you hear all kind of languages being spoken around you. So we invite the world to see this. We have a lot of pride in this project. With that, I call for the motion to approve the dollars. for this project.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. You just approved $21.5 million for phase 3 of the low battery.
I agree.
seawall.
I agree. We have a nickname for Councilman Siggy. We just started calling him Councilman Moneybags. He's got everything over there. The rest of the agenda, as you see, it was most was an update on Calhoun West, which was postponed. Orleans Woods postponed. Cooper Jackson postponed. But it was a good discussion on Lake Dottier, and it is a situation that I'm going to defer to Councilman Shealy on. He has to be put on the agenda.
Well, thank you, Councilman. I appreciate the opportunity. You know, Lake Dottier, a lot of you know, has flooded over and over again. They've had major flooding 3 times. It's, you know, it's part of our city park, part of West Ashley Park. And, you know, when you look back at where and why this flooding's occurred, Weston and Sampson Church Creek Basin study showed that this creek should flow out into Long Branch Creek, which goes underneath the Glen McConnell Parkway. So when the Glen McConnell widening project was going on, it was actually included in there to put pipes back underneath the Glen McConnell so that lake could flow out into out into Long Branch Creek. Bad news is somewhere along the line, the state has said you can't use the 1/2-cent sales tax. Now, when the state and I know Councilman Appel disagrees with that, and maybe there's a fight there, I don't know. But we were all excited when this thing was going to go through. It made sense. We're going to do this all at the same time. The road's going to have to be cut, so the pipe goes down, so that lake can drain. It was a great idea. Everything's good until this ruling comes down, and then all of a sudden it's not a great idea anymore. I got to tell you that a lot of areas, if someone had, if people's homes had flooded 3 times and we continually have issues with it, and we're draining this lake every time we have storms coming, in a lot of other areas, $2.6 million when we just approved $21 million is to me, I was very disappointed in the lack of urgency, I guess, that I saw in this thing. The people of West Ashley deserve just as much as anybody else when we know they're going to flood. So I came out of that meeting. I'm not on that committee, but I came out a little bit disappointed in what's going on. So what I would like to do is I'd like to add this to our next agenda item, if I could, our next city council agenda, so that we could have a discussion on this. So I just feel like there should be that urgency. And that we should be taking care of people that live in a flooded area. So if we could add that, I'd appreciate it.
We'll be glad to do that. Yes, sir. Councilmember Gregory.
The agenda.
Public Works.
I know we are. Councilmember Parker and I in particular, I mean, we're getting a lot of emails with regard to drainage issues on James Island, particularly the Wambar project, Central Park. And we would like to get an update on that project, particularly since it took us back in 2015 is when we started, and it took us many years just to get the money for the study, as you know, Mr. Mayor. And now I think that many of the residents on the island are a little uncomfortable because they're not sure whether or not this project is continued to be a priority. I thought we had set aside $5 million specifically for this project. And we need to get some clarity so that Councilmember Parker, as well as Councilmember Appel, will be able to provide current and appropriate information to the residents of the island because they're really getting concerned. And in addition, if we can just get an update on all of the drainage projects on James Island, I think it would be good, not just for Councilmember Pell and I, but more so for Councilmember Parker.
So if I may respond to that request, and really, if I may respectfully say to the Lake Dotterer request as well, we've been planning for some time to have a budget ad hoc committee meeting to review where we are with the drainage fund and projects that both small and large that are in the planning phase and hadn't been funded yet, and try to set those priorities. I don't know, Amy was supposed to set up a date, and I don't know if it's been
Mr.
set
Mayor.
yet, but
Mr. Mayor.
first meeting in April. So
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's really what I'm referring to, Mr.
Right.
Mayor. 'Cause
So
we were prioritizing them.
that's right. So could I respectfully ask that rather than come to the next council meeting, that we take both of these together and the rest of it to by process to our ad hoc committee meeting. Everybody's welcome to attend. And then that committee will, of course, report to council as they normally do. But I think that would be a good procedure and kind of look at it a little more holistically than piecemeal. Because like I say, there's Lake Dotterer, there's James Island, there's Johns Island, there's we do need to look at all of them, and Amy's coming forward to maybe share something further with us.
Last year, what we did, Mayor, was we took it to Public Works Committee first, and then we did a full council. We did it to full council, if you remember that. If that's what you wanted us to do again this year.
Yeah, but on the budget side, I thought we had decided we would do an ad hoc budget meeting as well.
I thought we were doing it like we did last
Yeah.
year, so we can
Yeah.
do it whichever
Either
way.
way.
It doesn't matter.
Either
It can be
way,
ad
it's fine
hoc,
with me.
whatever way.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Shealy?
Mr. Mayor, we've got a short window of time with working with this widening project. And we've already brought this to Public Works.
Right.
Like I said, we've got a short window of time. If you do this project twice, the thousands and thousands of people that live in District 10, that live in District 2, that live in District 5, and the thousands of people who bring their kids to West Ashley High School and bring them to C.E. Williams Middle School and bring them to the playgrounds out that way are going to have to go through this. They already sit in horrible traffic right now. If we don't do this while the county does it, we're going to have 2 road construction projects that's going to bring terrible traffic to an area that's already has terrible traffic because we're going to be doing construction twice. It does not make sense. Because of that short window of time, I'd really like to request that we put this on the agenda for the next city council meeting.
That's fine, sir.
Thank you.
And Mayor.
Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, just so that we're clear. It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that we had $5 million specifically for Wamba in Central Park.
No, sir, I don't recall it that way.
I know you don't. We need to go back to the minutes, okay, of the meeting. Because I think we had gained $5 million in interest on something, okay? And we dedicated that $5 million to that project, okay? So we need to go back to we need to go back to the minutes of the meeting, okay? Because we voted on it as a council that $5 million, okay, would go toward the Wambar project on James Island. I just want to make sure that that's clear. So if you can pull the minutes, that would be fine.
Which meeting was this?
I can't
Councilmember?
remember, but I
Yeah.
think that there's a way to research it.
I
Okay.
think it's when we refinanced.
Yes, it
the
was.
Stormwater bond.
Yes, we did.
And there's some savings annually over an extended period of time.
But whatever it is, okay, extended or however, we've got to make sure that those dollars are dedicated to the island for this project. Okay?
We're
kinda felt like-
going to check that. Back to
me to
our
finish this
committee
report.
report.
That's
Councilmember
right.
Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Would you believe it or not, everything else passed unanimously? And that collectively is the extent of my report.
Thank you. Do we need to take action on any of those items? The ordinance, and we do need to take action on the ordinance.
Ms. Copeland was gonna put a little more tweaking into it.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. That's right. It didn't pass.
Correct. The way the ordinance is written is to approve it in a form that is later approved by legal. So we're still working through the tweaks.
That's what I thought. Thank you. We didn't vote on it in the council, in the committee meeting, so, because a little bit more tweaking, that's all.
We're coming back.
Well, I think you voted to move it forward.
Yeah.
I think that's what I recall, just by the way it was drafted in the, on the agenda.
Okay.
And you gave us some
So we
instruction
need
on
to
the
take
tweaks.
action upon the Ashley Harbor matter.
Yeah, I didn't think we voted.
You can tonight, or we can wait until we get it in a final form.
So I definitely made a motion regarding the Ashley Harbor thing.
You did?
Mhm.
To move
Yeah.
forward.
That's right.
As modified, you know, we were gonna limit the scope of the maintenance and all that
That's right.
stuff.
All
That's right.
Well, I so moved that motion gets
Second.
passed.
Second.
before council.
Thanks for the reminder. Okay, we have a motion. It was amended in committee that we allow this easement to go forward with some further refinement, definition of what maintenance means by legal counsel, correct? All right. Any further questions about that? Councilmember Appel?
I didn't have a comment about that specifically, but I just wanted to follow up on Councilmember Shealy's very passionate plea for Lake Dotterer and some of that work over there. I've researched Charleston County's half-cent sales tax referenda and enabling ordinances extensively over the years. I am here to tell you, you cannot fund a pure drainage project through the road half-cent sales tax money. But if you can tie and connect a road project to an ancillary drainage project, you can 100% use Charleston County half-cent sales tax dollars for that purpose. Charleston County has a lot of money they get to play with every year. This half-cent sales tax measure has generated over $1 billion since it was first enacted. $2.6 million change order to whatever they're doing over at Glen McConnell is a rounding error for the county. Okay, and guess where a really large percentage of the sales tax revenue gets generated in this county? It's right here. So I think Councilman Shealy is right on target. And to the extent there's a lot of like bad legal advice that's been given around lately. You know, we got people telling council members they can't request an attorney general opinion. We've got some very wrong legal advice on the half-cent sales tax issue. I'm sorry, I have to say it. And I just think that we need to find a way to help Councilmember Shealy out over there.
All right, Councilmember Shade, the motion on the floor is regarding the Ashley Harbor neighborhood. Councilmember Shade?
A comment after we take the vote on that.
Okay.
That motion.
Any further discussion regarding Ashley Harbor? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now, Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse on this, but we got into this discussion about Lake Dotterer and the very limited funds we have on stormwater management. And so I just want to make sure the process is correct, because we're all jockeying around here for money. I've got several projects in District 9 that have been on the waiting list, and they've been deferred from time to time. And these folks are maybe a little smaller group of people that may impact, but they have been waiting for almost a decade to get relief. So whatever process we're going through, and Councilmember Gregory brought up a point dealing with issues on James Island. So I don't want to undercut what Councilmember Shealy is concerned about with Lake Dotterer, but I just want to make sure that we're following the process, and there seems to be some confusion about this. We've got stormwater fees that we set aside, and we have also $1 million that we set aside for what's been called the smaller projects on that. And we try to create, and Matt, I haven't seen Matt here, but we try to create this, he was here earlier, a process of prioritizing those particular projects, particularly the quote unquote small projects. So I don't want us to get derailed and lose sight of that, and make sure that our priorities are still straight on that. Councilmember Shealy's got a good point that we don't want to redo something that is in the process of being under construction. But I don't want to lose my position in line either for these projects that we have. So if we're going to meet in April, let's meet in April to start having this discussion about some of these projects. If we're going to bring it back up in city council, I want my projects put up as well then too. I mean, I don't want to default on those issues that we're dealing with. And I know Councilmember Gregory's got some issues that he's dealing with as well. So I'm just concerned about the process. Where are we going with this now? Are we going to have a meeting in April to talk about this, or are we going to bring this back up at city council next term?
We're definitely going to have a meeting in April to talk about all the projects. Councilmember Shealy, could I wouldn't call it a compromise, but let me, we discussed this matter at great length yesterday in the committee meeting, and it's a little complicated. It's not as easy as just putting the pipes under the road. You gotta basically put them in and then close them off, so they're not going to do any good until you do plan B and C further in Long Branch Creek. And we have so many days in which to notify the county that we're going to proceed with putting up the money to do the project, even the pipes. So as explained to us yesterday, and I made a suggestion that I didn't follow up with as of yet, I am right now. Why don't we ask our stormwater department to proceed to get the permit that they need from the Corps of Engineers, even to do the pipes, okay? They've got to still get more permitting in place in order to proceed with the county project. In the meantime, we got to figure out what happens with Long Branch, what the benefit is of dealing with the dam, and where to spend our big money, so to speak, next. But there's no reason why we can't keep the ball rolling, in my opinion, based on that discussion yesterday. And it is within my authority to ask Mr. Fountain to proceed with getting that permit in place. So we won't lose any time in that sense of urgency while we come back to everybody in April and talk about all the projects together. Because basically we got to decide, are we going to spend $2.6 million of city funds to put those pipes under there that won't be utilized maybe for some years in the future? And I respect if we make that decision, that's fine, but that may mean, you don't do something else somewhere else. But we all got to make that decision. But there's no reason, it won't cost us, I think Matt said it would maybe cost $50,000 to proceed with continuing to apply for the permit. And I'm willing to authorize him to proceed and keep on that track. Councilmember Waring.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with all that. We had a lot of conversation. But if Councilman Shealy if we were to put that on the agenda.
It's fine to be on the agenda.
But in the next 2 weeks, we're going to find out more information on this. I promise you, because we're going to have conversations with county council persons on Councilmember Appel very valid point. And once Mr. Fountain can continue with your instructions, and with that additional information in 2 weeks, we can defer that. But I think we couldn't put it back on the agenda. I think this one, because of the county moving forward, if you would allow, put it on the agenda in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah,
we got enough items on this agenda tonight that's going to be deferred. We can easily defer that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'm suggesting to you, we'll keep the ball rolling in the meantime.
Okay.
And keep all options open.
Okay.
I think that's most reasonable. And with all due respect, Councilmember Appel, we and the county jointly asked the Department of Revenue. They said no. Now, maybe legal counsel could tell us we can petition the state or sue the state, or there's maybe some subsequent action we can take. But our definitive answer from the Department of Revenue, for whatever reason, Joy, you can explain it rather than me, but they said no. And honestly, I don't know that the county minded that response, but that's another issue. Councilmember Appel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd be fascinated to see that correspondence, Julia, when you have a moment, no rush. But I don't know the ins and outs and specifics of Lake Goddard. I don't follow it that closely, no offense. I've got my hands full over in District 11. But I do want to just make one quick point before we move on to the next committee report. And it's something that Councilman Waring has mentioned a time or two over the years, and it directly addresses something that Councilman Shea had mentioned, which is to say that the city of Charleston currently, we're very limited in the resources we have dedicated to stormwater. You know, the stormwater fees, they're great. It allows us to do some work, but it's not big time. So my point is that when there are opportunities to leverage other funding sources, whether it be the county's half-cent sales tax, whether it be TIF revenue downtown, that frees up drainage fund for the Windermere Basin project, for the Wamba project, for the Doo-Wop implementation, for Lake Goddard, things of that nature. So it's very important for us, and our city does a great job of this. You know, looking at different alternative funding sources to get these projects done, because we will not solve. I'm telling you right here, we will not solve outer, off peninsula drainage problems purely on our drainage fund. I mean, it's just not enough resources, especially given all the stuff we're doing downtown. Rightfully so. We got to find alternative sources of revenue when they exist. And it may be the case here, it may not. I look forward to seeing what the DOR has to say, and we'll go from there. Thank you all.
All right. Terrific. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none. Yes, sir. Councilmember Shealy.
Well, I just wanted to respond by saying, I've been on council. This is my 5th year. I've never seen a drainage project turned down that's come to council. And I have certainly voted yes on every one in probably every different district. And I believe this is a unique situation where we've got a small window of time, not trying to take anything from anyone, because like I said, I have voted positively on every drainage request that's come before city council in the time that I've been here. And I support everybody's drainage problems, everybody's district. But I just think we've got a unique situation where we have a small window of time. And I do believe that we'll have more information in 2 weeks when this comes back up,
That's right.
just like Councilman Waring said. And we'll have a lot more information. Maybe we can move forward. So,
Great.
Thank you.
So back to you, Committee on Special Facilities, Councilmember Shealy.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Committee on Special Facilities met this afternoon in person. We did have one person one council member that met virtually through Zoom. And we unanimously approved a memorandum of understanding between the City of Charleston and the Coastal Community Foundation regarding the construction of a grave memorial on the Gilliard Center grounds along George Street. This is the same one that Mayor Tecklenburg was talking about in the Ways and Means Committee. The City of Charleston's cost on the memorial will not exceed $250,000. Funding has been included in the 2022 Hospitality Fund budget. So I guess we need a vote on that from
So
here.
move.
All in favor?
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. And we also had an update on facilities from Matt Froelich. I want to see if
He's still here.
Matt's still here. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Councilmember Shealy. I just updated the Special Facilities Committee on the city's special facilities, what had happened in 2021 and what we were working on for 2022. Just real briefly here. Dock Street Theater had visitation around 30,000 in 2021. We completed a new 5-year lease and facilities use agreement with Charleston Stage. We did have some impacts on rentals because of the pandemic, but we did have quite a few events. We have a full schedule on the book for 2022. Maritime Center, we saw 334 transient boaters, had fuel sales of 57,000 gallons. We completed the lease agreement with the aquarium and the license agreement with Charleston Harbor Tours. We are doing some upgrades to water lines and electric on the docks in 2022. Old Exchange had 83,000 visitors. We are doing some updates to panel displays there. Old Slave Mart Museum had 78,000 visitors. We were doing some updates there, had a model put in. The big one, Angel Oak Park, had 336,000 visitors. That included being closed on some Wednesdays in 2021, but we are reopened on Wednesdays effective this week.
That's good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Froelich? All right, thank you for that report.
Thank you. That concludes the report. Thanks.
Okay, next up, Committee on Ways and
Second.
Means. Any questions, additions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we have our bills up for second reading. I think we got 12 of them total. You want to take all of them together? Does anybody want to pull anything out for any reason? Sir? Okay. We'll take 1 through 12 together. Did we get a second?
Second.
Yeah. Any discussion or questions on any of 1 through 12? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye,
opposed?
nay as to number 7.
Nay on number 7 for Councilmember Seekings. And now for third reading and ratification.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Same vote, please, Madam Clerk. On third reading on number 7, also nay. Thank you.
So next up, we have an ordinance to amend Article 2. Looks like Ms. Copeland had some comments about that while I sign these up.
Actually, no, since we posted the proposed amendments regarding virtual participation, we are talking about that ordinance, correct? Okay, good. We had some good, we've had some good citizen input. So with that said, we would ask that someone or that this council adopt first reading as amended to
Second.
to remove the last sentence in section 2, which is in front of you. It just had, it was a conflicting provision with the first body or the first section of the body of section F. So we would ask that you amend it to remove that line.
All right, I'm signing away. Any discussion or questions about that for first reading? All in favor, please say aye.
Yeah, question, I'm
Any
sorry, question.
opposed?
I'm sorry.
Oh, Councilmember
question.
Parker?
Yeah, can you just point me into the, show me, I lost Julia on that one.
I got it. So if you go to F2 on the amendment that was just put on your desk, if you don't have it, I can pass it to you.
Perfect, thank you,
If
yeah.
you take a look at F2, the last sentence, it just conflicts in terms of how to define a quorum with F.
Okay, thank you.
Straight on that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Anything else for the good of the order this evening?
Second.
2 more seconds, y'all. That's it. Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.